ask the comments out in the audience what they want to hear. They said growth.
Okay, good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm very excited to introduce Nile to you, and with two gentlemen here who I think, at least from my point of view, need no introduction. But at the same time, I think I'm going to ask our dear friend John, who has obviously been a central figure in a lot of technology trends and companies, and now a mentor and an investor in a bunch of young startups, to maybe introduce Pankaj, as you've known him for a very long time, I think, and really also talk about your relationship, not just what Pankaj has done, your relationship with him.
Okay, so I make my living identifying market transitions, pattern recognition off of those, technology changing business models. And Pankaj and I have done this since 1996 together. If you watch at Cisco, we invented the model of build it yourself, acquire, and strategically partner. And there were three major acquisitions that we did that really changed the marketplace. First one was Crescendo, moved into switching, became a $13 billion operation for us relatively quickly. The second one was Stratacom. For Crescendo, we paid $97 million. That was a pretty good deal in hindsight. Stratacom was $4.5 billion in 1996 on it, and it was our movement into service provider, which became 30% of our business, and you can do the math on that in terms of how big that was. And then we did Meraki, which we paid $1.2 billion for. And each time we did these acquisitions, the stock went down, thought we were losing it, and they turned out to be home runs. But what you saw was with Meraki, the ability to identify a market and blow it through our channels. So if you look at all three of those acquisitions, they were probably three of the most strategic in the industry. Meraki, we paid, like I said, $1.2 billion, and it went from a $100 million run rate to $2 billion run rate in 18 months. So what I'm sharing with you is acquisitions are a way to move rapidly, but what we did together at Cisco was build a company that could innovate very well internally, that could acquire and strategically partner in a unique way and get these market transitions right. When we left Cisco, we left a couple years apart, but basically we were number 1 in 12 product market areas, number 2 and 3, and number 3 and 3, which no company's done before or since in terms of the approach. But he's like my older brother, better looking, smarter on it. But we've been fishing together in Alaska for 15 years. Our families have grown up together, and he is very much a family. Somebody I'm very proud to know of, and somebody obviously I'm betting on again and again, both from the friendship side and the business side.
So were you surprised that he wanted to start a new company after Cisco?
Well, we did 6 companies together where we invested in, and I was waiting for him to come and ask, do we want to do one really from scratch? So he had me at a low when he walked in the door. But when he described what he wanted to do, I fell in love with the concept because it's exactly what we do well. Market disruption, tremendous growth opportunity, going after companies that have not changed for decades. No, I wasn't surprised, actually. I was waiting.
I was very excited. So, but Pankaj, why don't you give the audience a little bit of a glimpse into what your thinking was and why you wanted to do this. And then obviously talk a little bit about what Nile is, because I think people do want to know.
Absolutely. So thank you, John. Thank you for a very kind introduction. You know, when you work in an industry for 30 years, which is what I have, between Starcom and Cisco, you get to know absolutely every single good and bad of the industry. And every industry has it, by the way, right? Every industry has certain things that it needs to change over a period of time. And when you are in that zone, and when I came out, I always felt that my job was not quite done. It was not finished. And when I really take a look at, especially the cloud players, what they had done, specifically Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, and what they did to compute and storage, I felt that networking was the last frontier standing, that nobody had actually. There had been many, many attempts to do software-defined networking and whatnot.
Can I just stop you for a second? When I said networking to someone in my office who's under 30, he said, they're trying to replace TikTok?
Exactly.
We got to talk to that person. A marketing challenge.
So why don't you talk about the world of networking a little bit first?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's the internet connectivity inside the enterprises. as we know it, right? Actually, I would say this, that, and I'll give you one data point, which is our today's lives are completely tethered to our phones or our devices, right? When we went through a bunch of storms this season, the one warning that will come from PG&E every time there's a new storm coming, they'll say, make sure that your smartphones and your iPads are all charged up. So they expect people to depend more on connectivity than they ask people to depend on the utility. So it has actually become even more relevant than the utility per se. So I think that this is a major opportunity, and I truly believe that, and people have talked about network as a service, and I truly believe that Nile is not about network as a service. We are about network at your service. That's what we are doing.
Good. So John, maybe going back to what you just mentioned, which is around technology transitions, right? And every time there is a transition, and we were just, in this conference today, everybody's talking about OpenAI and ChatGPT. It's a transition. It is. There's an opportunity that has been created when there is a foundational shift in technology. Maybe for the audience, talk about where you've seen this in your career, and then a little bit more and what that transition is that enables Nile today.
So you look for a business model change and a technology transition together. One without the other doesn't scale quickly, and it doesn't have the financial success. Secondly, in this industry, after people have been in leadership roles for multiple decades, they, without realizing it, quit disrupting themselves and think about very gentle incremental change. And when that happens is usually when the next generation of companies break away. And it's also usually during an economic downturn. So we'll talk about this maybe later today, not in this session, but you actually establish great companies during the downturns. During the good terms, too many people get funded in terms of the direction. So if you look at the business transition, this is something that our customers, every time I would talk to a customer, loved our technology, networking, et cetera, by us and some of our very good competitors. But they would always say, it is just so difficult to use, so difficult to install. I have to do capital refreshes all the time. And John, what are you thinking? You only get 25% of my spend, and the other 75% I put in cost to make it work and maintain it. Why don't you address that second part, and we'll pay you dramatically more? So that was the vision. So when the internet first came out, people couldn't even explain. Jeff Bezos said the biggest issue he had at Amazon was explaining why he went public and why he was betting on this concept called the internet for Amazon's future. But it changed the way you work, live, learn, and play. Today, there are two equalizers in life. The first one is education, and the second one is truly access to easy-to-use internet capability. So the transition is very simple. You get a business model change enabled by new technology, i.e. simplicity, 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 dramatically lower cost, as a service type of implementation. You pick out a leader, and Pankaj's team is amazing. We've had leaders at Cisco in engineering that were very visible and very well known in the market. He ran all of engineering for me, and he put together this team, and he attracted not only the best from Cisco, but from Juniper, from the other companies in the industry.
And the cloud companies.
Yeah.
And the team is just amazing on it. Then you go to customers, and if it takes you more than 2 minutes to explain to a customer what you're doing, you got a problem. And if by the third minute they're not excited, every customer I talked to on this concept implementation was really excited about it, and you could see there was an inflection point coming. So we've done this multiple times together, and I use 3 examples of just acquisitions moving into new markets. This one goes across all industries. We'll clearly start with the enterprise and then expand it beyond that. But it's the next generation network leadership, and you know how large that market is.
So one of the more exciting things about Nile is the addressable market and the size of this opportunity. So Pankaj, talk a little bit about the size of what you're doing, why this is applicable horizontally, and then maybe also take us through a customer journey, which is really how are they doing it today? How does that change with Nile? What's the narrative? And maybe some real world examples.
Sure. So the addressable market actually, right off the back, there is roughly about $29 to $30 billion of the capital equipment spent every year in the enterprise networking. Nile is about really the new paradigm in the enterprise networking, right? And that is how much they spend. As,
Just on equipment.
Just on the equipment, right? This is the capital expenditure that the customers every year fork out when they purchase the equipment. Now, actually, the bigger component is the operations, right? And this is something that John and I used to talk about at Cisco, is that customers typically end up in spending roughly about $3 for every dollar spent on the capital equipment every year. So if the life cycle of the equipment is 5 to 7 years, they're going to spend somewhere between $15 to $21 over that life cycle on the operations.
Just to keep it up and running.
Just to keep it up and running.
Yeah.
It's extremely, this industry is extremely complex from capital, more importantly from even operations, and it takes tons and tons of resources.
And who gets that money?
That money is actually pretty much used by a lot of IT outsourcers. It's used by some by partners.
So basically human capital.
Humans. There's a lot of human capital spent into this. So our addressable market day one when we came out, is roughly about $120+ billion right off the back, right? And that is about the enterprise wired and wireless segment that we are addressing. We are
Now, if I can jump in there, everybody on stage that you listen to during the 3 days of the conference will get up here and say the addressable market, and we intend to get a large percentage of that.
Right.
What you see that is different this time is we've done this 18 times.
And it's being
we'll see if we
spent
can do it
today.
again.
Correct.
It's being
Yeah.
spent today. It's not a futuristic
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think once we add other services, which we'll add the WAN and we'll add the
I think it's a big enough
security.
market, yeah.
It's like a giant, several $100 billion market.
So then
The key is focus, though.
Absolutely.
Right.
Focus.
So let's then focus on, let's say, 1,000-person company. And let's talk through some of the economics of how they're doing it today, and then what changes with Nile.
So at a high level, what would happen is that in any enterprise, when we go and talk to them, this is about built from ground up, delivered entirely as a service, right? So Nile's new wire and wireless LAN actually provides a highly reliable, very high performance, and highly secure offer to the customer, backed by the end-to-end lifecycle management. So when we interact with the customer, typically what happens is that the only manual step involved, honestly, is to go and do a detailed site survey. We do that to make sure that Wi-Fi is, by the way, very quirky. You can have a concrete wall, you can have appliances, and it can completely throw you off. So that is the only step that we do manually. It's not completely done manually. We use actually robots in concert with the human beings to do that. Once that is done, all that information goes into everything that we have done automatically after that. Tools are automated to build the architecture automatically, build the bill of material automatically. It gets kicked off at a factory in Taiwan. We built all the hardware from scratch, and we had to, like what Apple did. We have leveraged a lot of principles from Apple. And then the gear arrives at the customer location. It is so simple. We have actually, what I would say is that Nile is about something John said earlier, simplicity at its best. Simplicity in every aspect of what we have done is the innovation for us. That's what we have done. Gear arrives at the customer. It is so simple that it can be deployed by a high school grad who cannot spell the word network. And we have done this over and over again, literally.
It's a hard word to spell.
It's really,
It is.
It's really that simple, right? We literally have it where people can simply scan the QR code and just plug in the gear.
So you take the human capital spend for setting this up out of the equation.
Setting it up, but also then after it's set up and it's up and running. So that is the day -1 job, the setting it up part, right? Day job is when the service is up and running, we give actually complete control and visibility to the IT at that time. They can customize the service the way they want, but there is nothing for them to intervene. It's provided. We provide SLAs to them, which are backed by the financial guarantees which are outcome-based. And
Which is the first in the industry.
Yeah, which is the first in the industry. And by the way, there is a very unique thing that we do, which is we provide a holistic pay-as-you-use consumption model. So today, for example, any of the incumbents, not just Cisco, but anybody else. For example, when they go into an enterprise, they will say, what is the fire marshal capacity? 1,000 people, they'll install for 1,000 people. We say, hey, by the way, when we started the company, there was no pandemic in 18, right? But we had the foresight to say people would want to pay for what they use, like cloud model. We are built for the scale, flexibility, and agility of cloud, right? So we say, how many people show up for work? The customer said, maybe 300. We'll probably build the capacity for 350. We monitor it through the power of sensors, AI, and analytics every nanosecond, 24/7, right? No human involved. And if we need to augment the capacity, we will. But the customer at the end of the day will only pay for what they use.
So that was, John, what you were talking about. There's an innovation, of course, in technology, which is automation in this case, but there's also an innovation in the business model.
Yes, you nailed it, and I was looking for you. You often talk about 5 phases of company differentiation. It's changes in all 5. The first is the product is huge, and it isn't really a product, it's a new architecture. The second is it was designed not as a evolution of the past, slight incremental. It was designed by people from multiple industries who understood the limitations of what they'd built before and could start with the first time for a clean sheet of paper, which is really hard for incumbents to do. And then you've got to disrupt yourself, your business model, et cetera, and it goes straight to what are the customer's pain points. And then what we also did is we built in from the very beginning our distribution strategy, not for just a direct touch, as you've always got to do early in the product's life cycle,
right,
but distribution partners from the day zero. We had 50 signed up at the day we announced, and they were looking at not renting out their bodies because that's not very profitable for them either. It's how do you make profits? And we got the name players in the industry before there's $1 revenue. To the best of my knowledge, I've never had a startup in any area of technology come even close to that.
Can you share some of the names of your partners?
Yeah, I
now?
mean, to John's point, we had interest from over 260 global partners. But being a startup, we wanted to be careful about which ones we pick and choose because, we wanted to make sure that the ones we decide to work with, we are going to be able to devote the right bandwidth to be fair to them, right? And so we signed up with 57 so far. And there are big names like Worldwide Technologies. They are the largest in the networking industry.
Maybe share how they're planning to roll this out within Worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, we have been working with them on really providing, they already have had a Nile service block in their labs for quite some time. We already have done several customer deployments. We have gone through a full enablement with them. We have done a lot of training with them. And now we are at a point where how can we go and scale the business? That's what this is about, right?
Which is a good lead into what is this year about, Pankaj?
Well,
just to be clear, both John and I are on the board of the company, so we are allowed to ask him these questions.
We're very biased, and we're 2 of the largest investors.
So, when I say this, I say it with all the utmost humility, right? And John knows me. He has known me for 27 years. So he knows that I try to be humble at anything. But just to give you a little flavor, we had a very first quarter closed end of January this year. We came out of stealth sometime in September last year. And the very first quarter we closed, we exited the quarter at around $2 million in ARR. And you won't find too many startups doing the first quarter at $2 million in ARR. That's not easy to do. And we are, by the way, signed up. We shared with the board the plan of, in the very first 12 months, which is this year, we signed up to do 31 million in ARR. And so board actually advised me to say, hey, by the way,
there's no point.
We don't know anybody who has done this before. So we are giving you some leeway. Go back and do your homework and see whether you can come back with more practical numbers. We said, okay, well, fine. Then in that case, we'll sign up for 20 plus. So we signed up for 20 plus, but our stretch number is still 31. And we truly believe that we can build this company over the years of hundreds of millions of ARR and really, hopefully, at some point in time, billions of ARR, honestly. And the potential is there. If I can add one more comment to what you asked, towards the end of the year, 22, in December, Gartner is pretty, as you all know, is pretty tough. Like, it's not going to just write something that people want them to. And they have been following this industry for decades, right? And so they wrote actually a very nice piece about the wired and wireless campus LAN. And they said that this market is going to be disrupted, and we see, and they highlighted us. Now, we are not big enough to be put in the Magic Quadrant yet, but they said because you need so many customers and stuff. So they said, hey, by the way, this is the only company which can do this. And we didn't ask them to, and they would not listen to us even if we did. They, by the way, scolded our former employer and the other players in the industry, and they said, that is not how you do network as a service. This is the way to do it, right? And by the way, they have, what they have predicted, the pure network as a service, how we define it as a market, to be tens of billions of dollars in next decade. And we are only banking on, even if we get like a single-digit market share of that number, that's worth few $1 billion. I mean, that's not a chump change. And as we all know, $500 million and up.
Are you taking checks from the audience, Pankaj?
So, I mean, like, I would say that the opportunity is absolutely mind-boggling.
But if I could jump in there, for all of you startups in the room, understand that on your journey, you're going to have major setbacks. It's not a question of will you will. And your ability to handle the setbacks are as important or more than how you handle your successes. So the opportunity in front of us is almost unlimited. We've done this multiple times before, so our currency, track record, relationships are really good. Not an enterprise customer in the world that Pankaj and I can't call on, but we know this is a new model for them, and the resistance to change will be there as well. But the fact that we've messed this up a number of times over the years and been successful and learned how to do it right gets us all faster. 70% of the features in most networking companies are never used. They had huge complexity, cost, reliability issues, and
I actually blame him for most of those.
Well, no, I was probably to blame because I did a lot of acquisitions I actually folded him into. But this is the opportunity in front of us. Could we mess it up? Of course. Are we going to mess it up? I don't think so.
I think one other point, I think your couple of questions that you were asking, Sumant, is very important to convey to the audience, is that what we are after is really creating a brand new market category in the industry. And when you are creating a new category, by the way, so did AWS, so did Mark Benioff with Salesforce many years ago, Uber and others, there are many examples. When you create a brand new category, everything just doesn't go straight up in the straight line. To your point, John, there will always be pushback. There'll be a lot of lessons that we will learn along the way. But I'm pretty confident that the market is going to be ready, and the market is ready to really give us the opportunity to create this new category and hopefully reward us.
So we are sitting here 5 years from now, and you are talking about Nile. What would make you happy, John?
The #1 innovative networking player in the world, the best customer satisfaction, the highest reference rate, and a trust of your strategic partners and your channels to really deliver on it. That's the opportunity that I would feel really proud about, and I would love to see this man up here 5 years from now sharing the story again about what we're going to do over the next 5.
Thank you, John.
Anything to add, Pankaj?
No, I agree with John. The only thing I would say is that nothing would please me more than any user really getting the feeling that, man, this is a utility. It just works. I never ever have to think that, never have to find a
like
reason.
your electricity in your
like your power or water tap, right? When you turn on the water tap, you expect water to flow. When you turn on the switch, you expect the bulb to light up. People should have that level of confidence to say, never ever have to going back and checking whether my Wi-Fi is available or my network is up or not. If we can do that, will make me very happy.
So what's fun is during these panels, Jamie and Sumant get to challenge the guests. And one of the rule 101 in sales is when you close strong and you've got great answers, you say thank you and you get off stage. However, Saman, but you can handle the last question, and I want to see how you
Yes,
do
sir.
it. Why did you invest, and why have you become, in my opinion, the biggest bull in terms of what this could be?
So, our model at March is to find people that we want to build large companies with some, I would say, meaningful investments. And we don't do a lot. We do maybe 5 or 6 a year. But when we find something we like and it's working, we continue to keep going down that path and working with them. So, Pankaj and I talked about this as he was leaving Cisco. He said, I have this vision and I want to do this, and I just couldn't do it in Cisco because it would, compete with my own products. And so I said, whenever you're ready to do this, just let me know. I can't do it alone. I need this, I need that. I need $10 million to get started. So I still remember landing in Singapore airport. At the baggage claim, I get a call from Pankaj saying, I'm ready to go. I said, okay, what do you mean? He says, well, you can invest $10 million at 35. I said, done.
He had you at a low too.
That's it, absolutely. And it's been wonderful to be involved in the company and see it come to where it actually has a product in the market. And I can't wait to be here 12 months from now and see what you've accomplished. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you for listening to us. And if you have any questions for them, they're here. Please harass them. Thank you.